The Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast is proudly sponsored by New Vision.
My team, Conda, power. I love the power. I love the power.
G'day everyone, Macca 19 here, and this is the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast, coming to you live once again on Port Fan Radio. Joining me in the co-host chair once again, we have the lovely Portia.
G'day Macca, how are you?
Very well, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, not bad, but I'm a little bit worried with the guest we've got on tonight. I just feel like I have someone looming over my shoulders waiting to take my spot.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good at all. He couldn't stay away. Back on the podcast is Fishing Rick.
I'm third. What's the hell's going on here? Third in line.
You are the guest.
Relegated.
You are the guest this evening, and you're not coming on again for another month. So bad luck.
Oh, well, that's right. Well, I'm sure I'll get a facial to make up for it or something. How's that, Macca?
Sounds wonderful.
How are we all going?
Really good.
Very well, thank you. Very well.
It's good to see it hasn't skipped a beat and no one's missed me. So I know where my place is in the world.
I'm sure people have missed you. They must have, right?
Oh, Raman's missed me.
I think
I have
he
one
probably
fan.
has. Yeah.
So I'll shout out to Raman, and I've got to say, as you know, I was at the game, and I've got to do a shout out to Sean. I don't know Sean's last name, but he's a friend of that Crazy Big Owl, but he's a big fan of the Rickster. So Sean, I know you're probably listening. Thanks for the love, and yes, he was shocked, guys, that I sounded the same in real life as what I do on the podcast. What a crazy notion that is.
I feel this is some sort of cash for comments type situation you're going through here, Rick. Are you paying people to say, get me back on the podcast?
No, there was a lot of fan loving out there, and I got to say, we went to the Emerald, is it the Emerald Lakes Golf Club, and before the game, and we were having a beer there at one of the benches with a couple of guys, and I thought I'd test the water out, and so I mentioned Port Fan Radio, and they were like, "Oh, we know Port Fan Radio." So we've got out there a little bit, guys. A few people have heard us. That's right. All the way up in Queensland.
Oh, well, it makes
so
sense.
One of our 6 listeners is in Queensland. That's great.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I think that back in the day, like outside of Victoria and South Australia, I think Queensland was traditionally the strongest Port Adelaide supporter base. So lots of South Aussies up there, and I guess there must be lots of Port fans too.
Yeah, and I recommend going up there for an excursion if you're a Port fan and want to watch a game, because the Emerald Lakes put on a great show, and it's a good location, and I really enjoyed it. Right across the road from the stadium, and chicken palmies are pretty good there. Cheap beers, $5 stubbies, can't go wrong with that.
Nice.
Yeah, and
like it.
A fully lit up golf course, so you can play nighttime golf if you want to.
Did you do that?
Yeah, that is cool. That is pretty cool.
No, I didn't do that because I went to the footy instead. But it is cool. I was like, what's with the floodlights outside? And then I paid a bit more attention. I noticed that every hole was lit up, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I'd still hit a golf ball.
Don't go in the rough.
I'd go into a dark spot still, I'm sure. I'd need a fluoro ball.
That's it.
But I digress.
Well, look.
Now, can I ask a question? Have either of you guys read Kane Corns' book yet?
No, not yet.
No.
No, me either.
I've read the excerpt, but not the book.
Yeah, I'm trying
Couldn't
really
find it
hard
today. I
to
tried to buy it today, but couldn't find it.
I really don't want to read the book because I think it's just going to make me extremely angry. And what's the point? So I don't know. That's all I think it's going to have in it is just things that make you go, "Oh my god, we're a rabble." Not relevant now though. Hopefully.
Well, it sounds like it. It sounds, going by the excerpt, that we were pretty much a rabble through the primer years, but I guess you expect that when you finish second bottom and then lose to Gold Coast and GWS and lose by 300 points in 2 weeks. So, I don't know. It's probably just going to be a reiteration of stuff that we already knew, I reckon.
Well, he's not going to speak highly of Primus, is he? Really? Let's face it.
It was still a bloody good wrestler, though, at least.
He was a great player and he was a great Port Adelaide figure, but yeah, not a coach. That's for sure. But not everyone can be a coach. There's a big history of popular club players that really struggle to make it as a coach. So he's not alone there.
Don't forget one thing though. He gave it a go, and we shouldn't criticise anyone for for giving it a go, because it's easy to not put your hand up and do nothing than to at least give it a shot.
I don't think
Well, that's it. I mean, we had no money, no sponsors, pretty poor list. We're in the middle of sort of rebuilding the list. You had no assistant coaches. We had fucking Brian McMillan coaching and Laidley coaching via Skype and all this garbage. And going by the book, we had, the board sort of determining who was going to play each week and all this sort of stuff. So he was probably dealt a bit of a shit sandwich, so...
Yeah, but as you say that he had to go, but it's not like senior coach at Port Adelaide at any time in the AFL has been like a position that no one has wanted. I mean, we're still interviewing coaches. We interviewed the next year's premiership coach for Primus's position, if I recall, and Chris Scott.
That's right.
It's and he wanted the job, but we went with Primus. So it's not that the position was no one wants it, like being the captain of the English cricket team. It's a real position. So. I don't think.
Yeah, but you can't blame him for being appointed. He put his hand up and he got appointed. So
you don't blame him for being appointed.
Yeah,
it's the decisions he made, though.
Yeah, he was probably better off following Chris Scott's path than the Matthew Primus path with hindsight.
Maybe.
Oh, that wasn't very nice. That wasn't very nice, was it? Anyway. Let's keep going.
I look forward to reading it, personally. I reckon it's going to be a good read, but hopefully it goes into more sort of details about some things that I want to know about. So, but anyway, let's move on and talk about our love and hate, which is one thing we loved, one thing we hated about Port Adelaide this week. Portia, I shall start with you with your love.
Karl Amon. It's really great to see that we've got young dads coming up, and you got your 3 in a row, Macca, of young blokes coming up. And it's really good to see, because what it means is when you've got young depth, you don't need to hang on to the old depth. Like, there's no excuse for it anymore. So you can clear up the list a little bit as well, which is a pleasing thought. But Karl Amon, just his performance itself was really good. Kicking a couple of those goals, like, we don't have many players that can kick those goals. We've got Chad Wingard that can kick those long goals, and that's about it, really. I think that if he can show that he's a good, accurate long kick, as a half forward, I think that we keep him in that role. I mean, Stuff being a half back or a back pocket, we have a very strong need for half forwards, particularly given that someone like Jared Pollock, he's always going to be an injury risk, and we had some problems with Matty White this year. I think that it's really great that he's sort of being able to perform in that role, and I hope he keeps doing it.
Yeah, he's going to be a player for sure. 3 goals, a wonderful performance. And the thing that impressed me the most was, there was a lot of criticism around Karl Amon after his Collingwood performance. And this week he had 6 tackles and he had more contested possessions than uncontested touches. So, he's certainly put his body on the line and won a couple of hard bowls. And to top it off with 3 great goals, it was a fantastic performance. So, well done. And I can't wait to see what he does next year with another pre-season under his belt. And he's, as I've said before, he's almost like a mini Chad with his sort of skill set and X factor and all that sort of thing. And you can never have enough of those sort of players.
Yeah,
How was his first goal? Did you love it?
Yes.
It was pretty good.
It was pretty classy. It was getting tough in those conditions, so he executed really, really well.
That's it. What about you, Rick? What was your love?
My love? You've thrown me. I thought we were going to go for the hates first. I reckon Sammy Gray. I'm a bit like you guys with the underdogs coming through in the last month, but a few people have posted online about amazing how when you play someone in their natural position, what they can do, and I think because finals has sort of been out of contention, we've sort of given him a few more opportunities as well. But did average 30 disposals over the last 3 or 4 games in the AFL at the highest league is a very, very classy performance. I think it shows that he has some value on the list, and it's good to see, like you guys were just saying with them on, a bit of pressure coming up from underneath, which gives us a bit of clarity on what we can do with the rest of the list.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about Sammy Gray in depth a little bit later on. My love was Hammer. We were pretty critical of him mid-year, and he's really had a very good season this year overall, and has definitely been in our top 3 to 4 players for the season, in my opinion. And his form over the last 2 months has been exceptional. And
Yeah.
You know, he really seems to enjoy playing in the wet as well. So he's my love for this week.
Mm.
Yeah.
He seems to he's found his niche, hasn't he?
It's a good spot for him. Like it's a spot he can play for a long time as well.
Yeah.
Definitely. We've got a tweet. Bevan has tweeted in and said that he thought Karl deserved a Rising Star nomination. And you got to say, if he hasn't got it, then he might be a little bit stiff.
Nah, he won't get one. If he played for Carlton, he would, but he won't.
Fair call.
No, I think if you go through the record, like you look through the Rising Star nominees, like Carlton have got a ridiculous number of Rising Star nominees on their list, like over 15 years or whatever it is. And their performance really hasn't shown that they actually were Rising Stars. Yeah, very disproportionate.
Mm. No, as long as we recognise the players that deserve to be recognised, that's all that really matters, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Gavin Wanganeen medal sort of contention is a bit better than a Rising Star nomination, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
That's it. And what about your hate, Portia?
I hate that we've talked about how these are sort of dead rubbers and we're winning them, and it's kind of frustrating. But what I find particularly frustrating is that you could say that we're winning because there's no pressure, but you could also say that we're winning because even though it looked like it was falling apart and was total shit during the year, this is actually the fitness regime that we wanted in place, where we sort of have a bit of a dodgy, do just enough mid-year sort of period, which didn't work out, and then followed by coming into really pretty decent form going into the finals, which is, yeah, it's a very Port Adelaide thing. It's a very premiership aiming way to play out your season, and so if we just had not let ourselves down mid-season, we could be looking at something very different. But I don't think it's just that we're winning because we had the pressure off. I think it's also the fitness design as well. No? You disagree?
What does that? I don't know. What does that actually mean?
Well, as in we prepared our players so that they'd be ready to go and perform in finals, like you see every other year. Like Fremantle's going to do this week, for example. You know, what they do is they hold them back and then they're okay for finals. Like just prepare so that at the right end of the season, you guys are actually in their top form, which I think what we're seeing with the key players is actually the case.
It's pretty good as long as you qualify to make finals.
Well, yeah, that's right. It didn't work, but I think it's the coach's fault.
You don't think so?
No, I don't.
You're not blaming the coaches at all?
I'm blaming the coaches. I don't know if I'm blaming the coaches.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's the fitness
Yeah, I don't think
coaches.
it's the fitness coaches. Yeah.
No.
I don't know. I think early in the season we didn't look fit at all, I don't think. But, you know, it also comes down to the mindset of the players. And I think overall I thought they maybe just thought that success would come this year. That natural sort of progression might actually just occur naturally, but it didn't actually happen. And you do actually have to work pretty hard to get success in the AFL. So that sort of leads onto my hate a little bit. And my hate is not playing finals this year, and what a missed opportunity it's going to be, because every team in that top 8 is very beatable. You know, a premiership is certainly up for grabs this year, and as much as any, you know, we could really see a 5th to 8th, you know, team sneak in a grand final spot. You know, all of Richmond, Dogs, Crows and North are looking like they could knock off anyone above them on the ladder. You know, we've won, 6 of the last 8, probably going to win 7 of the last 9. You know, but it's all too late. So I really do hope this season really stings at the club, and, you know, we make amends next year.
I don't think any of Richmond, Dogs, Crows and North are going to make the top 4. I don't think that's really likely at all.
You don't reckon?
No. I think they're mid-range teams like we've been this year. Really, they're the top end of them, but I think there's a pretty clear line between those and the teams above them.
No, I disagree. I think Richmond have proven that they can beat anyone, because they have beaten everyone this year.
Mm.
They've beaten Freo, they've beaten Hawthorn, beaten Sydney. You know, they've beaten all the challengers.
But can they do it when it matters?
Dogs have done the same. They've beaten Sydney. You know, Crows are looking in pretty red hot form. North are probably the shaky one out of the bottom out of that sort of 5th to 8th spot. But I think the other 3 are a red hot crack of maybe making a prelim.
I reckon that's their test this year.
I think
this week.
Yeah, but also, I mean, the teams that we've named, the way that you said they've beaten every team, and it's true they have, because they've prepared extremely well. They've had really good opposition scouting, but in finals, you know, all the top four sides, yeah, they might have got caught out by Richmond during the year, but they've had the whole year now to watch what Richmond is playing like this year, and it'll be interesting to see whether Richmond, for example, or the Bulldogs or the Crows can hold up under the same heat coming the other way, and that's where I think we haven't seen that come through, and I think that in finals, that's exactly when you will see that come through.
So you don't believe any of the top four have a chance of going out in straight sets?
I think it's not particularly likely at all, really. No.
I am with Portia there. I think the top four will make it through to the prelims.
Yeah.
You would think
They're
so. I don't know. I still don't think West Coast are as good as what people are making out to be. I still think they're pretty... I don't know. I have a feeling they may fall down under pressure in the finals this year. I think maybe next year and beyond they might be a red-hot premiership chance. But this year, I don't know. Who are they going to play? They're going to play Hawthorn, who I would expect them to win that game. Then they're going to come up against probably the Crows, who just absolutely thrashed the pants off them. So, I don't know.
Yeah. But did they... I didn't see the game, but, did West Coast really care? Are they in finals mode already? They didn't look too upset at the airport when I was getting off the plane and they were getting on the plane. So, maybe they're just...
Well, look, you're a pretty young side. The thing that you don't want to do is take finals for granted, because you do that, you're going to go out in straight sets, like Port did in 2001. You don't stuff around with your form. So if they sort of went in sort of half-assed, then, it could really tell against them.
But what sort of performance did West Coast put up? Was it just insipid or...
Shocking. They were really poor.
Yeah. Look, I just think they've been a very consistent side for the whole season. I'd be shocked if they stumble. They've got some experienced heads in that side, and I think they'll follow through. And I think they should be able to take advantage of Hawthorn's older legs. And it'll be interesting to see.
But even then, assuming the ladder doesn't change, West Coast will have a home final in Perth, and if they lose that, then they'll play the winner of whichever matchup it is in the bottom four, and they'll play them in Perth too. And that's always going to be a difficult thing to get past. It's really hard for a team to get knocked out in straight sets, particularly when they have a strong home ground advantage.
Sure, but we saw it happen last year with Freo, so.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's because Port was just too good.
That's because we're legends, but
that's exactly
outside
right.
of that, it still happened. I don't know. I think this is a year where, I don't know, maybe we say this every year, where people sort of get pretty hyperactive about those sort of 5th to 8th teams, and they think they're going to win the premiership, but in the end they get thrashed in the first week or something like that, like Richmond did last year. So, I don't know.
We'll see.
Could happen. But I don't know. I can see the Dogs or the Crows or Richmond. I mean, as I said, Richmond have beaten everyone this year, so they're probably the main one that could sneak up and maybe sneak a grand final spot if they're lucky.
They'll try.
Well, the last time we snuck a grand final spot, it didn't actually have a positive outcome for us either. I think we should point out.
No. Look, I would be more than happy if Richmond got thrashed by 120 points in a grand final. Believe you me.
Especially with Troy Chaplin on screen all the time, that'd be great. But
That's it.
yeah, I think that we're in it to win premierships, so we need to build and get stronger. And that's what's happened this year. We've had unveiled a lot of really good depth. I think certainly on the flanks, we've still got that huge hole at key forward. But apart from that, I think we're better now than we were at this time last year. Quite frankly, do you reckon that?
Our list.
Yeah, I reckon we know more about our list. I think we've got a better understanding of our list and a better idea of what we need to do to put in the final pieces than we did this time last year.
I would completely agree with that statement, because our list last year was great with minimal injury, so the bottom end of the list was a complete unknown. But I think some players have exposed themselves for the good, and some have exposed themselves for the worst. And so I would completely agree with that statement.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago I think I said on the podcast, and I wrote a big rant on the forum saying that we've pretty much achieved nothing this year, because we're not going to make the finals, we're not going to win a premiership that we were favourites for, and we've really sort of not discovered anybody that's really sort of stood up But I guess, as we've said, the last 3 weeks we've discovered, Sammy Gray and Brendon Ah Chee and Karl Amon, who have all sort of displayed the fact that they may be long-term AFL players with a bit of hope. Hopefully it's not a mirage. Hopefully they do become those sort of players. And look, if they can become those players and really add to our depth and push for regular senior football next year, I mean that's just going to be fantastic for us. And I'm still concerned about our forward line going forward, and that's probably the main disappointment is that I still don't think Butcher's much chop. I don't think, and it's really sad that Shaw's been injured pretty much all year and Harvey hasn't had a crack. So we really don't know all that much about our young forwards on the list. But you never know. Going into next year, hopefully that can be solved.
I just think one other thing on that is that you mentioned the 3 young guys that have come in and it's been a real improvement. But I think that if we look at the guys that were already in the sideline, we were just talking about Hamish Hartlett a minute ago, and we've finally found him a role that it looks like he'll be able to perform usefully for the side and probably keep fit for the whole time and play well for the rest of his career. I mean, that's fantastic to know that now, We've had Wingard go from being he's a bloody amazing player, and now he looks like he's a full-on senior player now, as far as I can see. He's everything now, and it's just amazing to watch. We've had Ryder come in, and he's had his first year, he's had his clunky, awful year where he sort of takes a long time to settle in, and he's started to settle. We've seen a huge amount. Our defence this year has been better than it was either of the last 2, because they've started playing really solidly, and we've seen it at the tail end of the year, really solidly as a unit, and backing each other up and knowing what their roles are and knowing what they need to do. I mean, they're a bit iffy mid-year, but at this tail end, they've been absolutely fantastic. So there's been huge development within the 22, and that's the one that really counts for us, really matters for us, because it's that, player 10 to player 22 performance that you really want to have on your top 4 if you're going to be a proper top 4 side. And I think next year we can actually say we do have that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think our defence has stood up pretty well all year under extreme pressure. I think our forward line's done as well as it could probably be hoped for given the situation. I think the midfield's the area which has really let us down. So that's the area where, I guess going into this year, you would have said would have been maybe the most secure or the safest part of the ground, I guess. But it's proven to be almost the exact opposite of that. So hopefully we can, hopefully guys like Gray and Amon and Ah Chee can, really push for regular footy next year and turn that midfield around and turn it into a top 4 midfield.
If you think back to the great John Cale, his ability was to find players that may not have been performing at the best, reallocate them into another position, which created a champion team and also a fantastic player. And I think, as Portia said, we're starting to see that with a few players now. They're finding their niche, which will help create that premiership, hopefully, and champion team. So I think we are going in the right trajectory. Unfortunately, we had to go back a step or 2 to maybe get there, but hopefully next year time will be on our side that it wasn't a complete waste 2015. And Macca, is this the longest hate segment you've ever had for your hate?
Pretty much. This has gone on forever, I've got to say. And just as a bit of a side note to my hate, Ben Lennon got the Rising Star this week, who had 16 touches, no goals, 1 tackle, no clearances, 2 inside 50s. What is going on there? And you can't even say it was sort of built up over a number of weeks, because last week he had 5 touches. So I think Karl Amon's a bit stiff.
I think he's very stiff.
I think a long time ago they made it pretty clear that they don't pick the player on the round that they're in. Like, I think we had one done against us where the guy got like 5 touches, but the week before against Eston he had a really good game. So I don't think they've ever said that you're going to get it because he performed well in that one round.
Yeah, and that's right, because I remember Lennon in the first game of the season actually had a really good game, so he did deserve his nomination.
Sorry, Macca.
Yes.
Go.
All right.
Go on.
Your hate, Rick.
My hate is you don't laugh at my bloody jokes. Come
we
on.
didn't even play in round 1.
Oh, well, that doesn't matter. Anyway, my haters have got to hate. What is it with you guys hating on Jasper Pittard, and especially people going to the game putting on hate? Macca, Crazy Big Owl, you haters. No, seriously, my hate's the rain. unbelievable. I was up in Queensland for the whole week, and it was sunny every single day. Saturday, rain starts to form at about 6 o'clock, and then it's constant drizzle until the end of the game, and then it cuts off again, and then it's perfect 25 degrees the next day. It rained literally for the 3 hours of the game that was on, and then that's it for the whole time we were up there. Unbelievable, the weather. Along with haters hating, the weather is my hate.
Who's been hating?
Bucketed it down last year as well. So.
What was that, Portia?
Who's been hating Pittard? He's been great.
Oh, bloody crazy big Al was at the game because he sat with me, and I don't think he'll sit with me at the footy ever again because I picked on him. I'm sorry, Al, but he was bagging out on Jasper the first half. Thought he had a horrendous game. Thought he was shit. Almost put out that horrible word that I'm not even going to say that has shit in it. And then Macca was saying that he was crap.
Yeah, I didn't think he was much chop in the first half, but I thought he had a ripper second half and really turned his game around. It was almost the moment where he gut punched Tom Lynch, almost with a shiv, it looked like. That almost turned his game around because he was pretty much faultless from that moment on.
You were at the game, Rick. I don't know if you noticed it, but in that first half when Pittard was was really not. He wasn't great, admittedly. Was there much movement up the ground? Were we actually providing options, or was he sort of left to invent something from nowhere?
We really slowed. We were really stagnant with our movement, and we were really slow. And we just did a lot of the straight down the line, wet weather football, but there was minimal movement there for a while. So that wouldn't have helped. But I mean, look, they were tough conditions. It was obviously getting slippery as well, and I think that's where the class players sort of start to shine in those conditions. But look, I at the game live, I didn't really notice that his game was that poor as what some people are saying. But I'm only having a bit of fun with Macca and Crazy Big Al. There's no need to hang up on me, Macca, just because I don't agree with you, mate. Come on. Steady on. Jeez.
Yeah, he didn't really drop. I just put him on mute for 10 seconds.
No, I think there's a huge difference. I think Pittard's one of those players that when you're watching him live and you're watching him on TV, you see a completely different game anyway, I think.
Yeah.
Because so much of what he does depends on what the options are.
What I've noticed over the last 3 weeks and what I love, and it's sort of infiltrated through a fair chunk of the side, and not just Jasper, is the aggression. We're maybe a little bit dirty at times. I know Jasper was getting into Martin, and he really got into Lynch when he was getting into O'Shea in that brawl. But I really love the aggression that he's actually bringing to the play, and I think part of our problem, if we go back to that discussion about where we went wrong in that middle section of the year, is I feel like the players were too meek. We were, just trying to play the pure happy football, relying on the umpires to look after us and, good games, slap on the back, all that sort of stuff. And we didn't have that little bit of mongrel about us. And let's face it, every successful football side has a bit of mongrel, has a bit of dirtiness in them. You don't have to be king hit behind the play. I like that little bit of aggression. And your man, Cam O'Shea, brought it in spades as well, Portia, and I love that niggle. That was fantastic to see.
I kind of wonder, because it sort of seems to go hand in hand with the style of play as well, because we're definitely playing a more, if not contested, a more dangerous style of play where we actually, get close to contested situations rather than constantly ping it out wide. I just sort of wonder if that just is all part of the one mindset.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. Yep, I think so. I think the more you sort of learn to relish the hardness and, copping a big bump and giving off a handball and all that sort of stuff, the more sort of aggressive you get. And, when you sort of, when you're playing sort of hard, tough football, when you're winning, you almost become a little bit unbeatable in that sort of, in that regard, I think. So, yeah, I'd agree 100% with that. All right, let's move on and talk about, the review of the game. Port played Gold Coast at the Gold Coast on Saturday night and emerged with a solid 37-point victory. Karl Amon, as we've spoken about, kicked 3 goals. Chatty Wingard, Justin Westhoff and Matty White kicked 2 goals each. Rick, do you want to give us a quick overview of the game?
Yes. Can I be brutally honest?
Yes.
all right, people might not like this. I don't know what it was like on TV, but live, it was shithouse. it was what you would call a soulless, boring game to watch live. I don't know what it was like on TV.
Yeah.
Did it come across the same?
Yes.
It was interesting for about 20 minutes, and that was probably about it. Outside of that, it looked like everyone was going through the motions.
Yeah, so, look, I took 2 rugby fanatics with me, obviously based in Queensland, and I was trying to explain them the rules, and it was just a very difficult game to get motivated, and they were yawning, and I can't blame them. But the weather came in, which really didn't help the spectacle, and I'm not sure what the scoreline would have been if it was a dry game, but I think we might have pumped them convincingly. But because of the wet weather, it sort of brought our skills down and the skills overall. And like I said earlier, what we found is that we did try our transition play and it did work quite well. But for a lot of the game, we were just kicking long down the line and then trying to get something over the back. Because of wet weather football, and that's primarily what we did. The concern, which has been a bit of a concern for a lot of the season, is that with our high press that we're trying to do, I found that Gold Coast was able to get the ball through that and into the open space quite easily. But obviously, with our domination in the field play, they couldn't really put scoreboard pressure on. To really maximise those deficiencies with our team defence still. But, overall, it was a workmanlike win, and there was that little bit of biffo there which sort of gave some sort of spice to the game in pretty tough conditions. And we got the points, and I'm glad we got the points. Because I didn't want this tanking mindset that some teams take at the end of the season when they can't make finals. I want us just to hit it hard and have that winning mentality, and we did that against a weakened opposition that was missing key players. But look, as we'll probably discuss in a sec, I thought Sam Gray was fantastic. Hamish Hartland. I thought Matty Broadbent had a pretty good game too. And I liked your call on Dixon. I would have had him in our top 10 players. I thought he did quite well. And but one I reckon is starting to make some progress for the Gold Coast is Sam Day. He's a big guy now. I was really impressed with his size, and he's starting to read the play well, and I think he's getting there, and I think he will become a reasonably good player, and I think he suits that centre half back position too when he plays there. But we just had too much class, and that's about it. We got the 4 points.
Yeah, I thought we were. Certainly to start the game, I didn't think we were playing to the conditions all that well. We were trying to play sort of dry weather footy and trying to pinpoint passes and super quick handballs, and it wasn't really working. And as soon as we started playing to the conditions, I thought we looked a lot better through that sort of late second half of the late part of the second quarter and through the third quarter. I thought we started to look a lot better. Some players started getting into the game. As you said, it wasn't a great sort of display of AFL footy, and it was probably only sort of 20 to 25 minutes of good footy, and outside of that, it was pretty run-of-the-mill, I would have thought.
Yeah, look, I thought the game was exactly what we already discussed. It was a bit of a slog, and I guess both teams really just did what they thought they needed to. No, both playing wet weather football. I think that it was nice to get the win, but I don't think we take too much more out of it, apart from the fact that everything seems to be working pretty well. Sam Gray doing pretty well. Charlie Dixon, I think that's interesting that he can play that style of game, because it's tough to be a tall and play half decent in the wet. So that's kind of good if he actually is interested in coming to Port, because we will have wet games. We've had, I think, the last couple of years, we've had a pretty dry couple of seasons at Adelaide Oval, but the wet will come back, you'd have to think, and knowing that we've got someone that could potentially, if we get him, that could play well like that, that's nice to think.
That's it. So, Sammy Gray just goes from strength to strength over the last few weeks. Let's talk about his game on the weekend. First, he had 37 touches, 10 clearances, 8 inside 50s, 19 contested possessions. It was a wonderful game. Over the last 5 weeks, he's had 27 clearances, which is second behind Robbie. He's had 24 inside 50s, which is first at the club, second in contested possessions, second in disposals. It's just a marvellous turnaround.
Yeah, it's a bit. What it's reminded me of, and I know he plays a bit differently, but I know when Paul Roos took over as the coach of the Sydney Swans, he was basically picking his own guys, and that was when Brett Kirk really got a good run, and he had a really great tail end to that first season. I really feel like Sam Gray's sort of having that kind of finally a breakthrough, and we could see from the start of next year that he becomes a really solid player all the season long. You just feel like he's on the verge of something there, potentially.
So, with Sam Gray, I've got an observation here, I guess. Like, on the plane, I was watching the replay of the 2004 preliminary final against St Kilda. And it was interesting because we're watching, obviously, Roger James keep us in the game in the first quarter. And Mick Malthouse was obviously commentating, and he was saying, Roger James, he's not the fastest guy, he's not the flashiest guy, but he keeps getting the job done. And to me, that's what Sam Gray reminds me of his last 4 weeks' performances. He's not the fastest guy, he's not the tallest guy, but he keeps getting the job done. And, it's a credit to him. And I guess my question is to you guys, is he getting the job done because he's getting more opportunity at the expense of player X now, but is doing it better? Or has he just lifted his game to a completely new level?
I think in part it helps that he is, he's had a couple of good weeks, but it helps that he's like probably the third person you try and shut down in our midfield. And I think that you that's a pretty good call as far as Roger James. I'd also think of someone like, maybe not, I think this guy's might be a bit taller, but like Brad Sewell from Hawthorn, coming in and just getting a few good clearances now and then. I think it's useful to just have all those numbers there that can do that, and I think that he's just benefited from being a little bit further down the pecking order than Boak and Gray, quite honestly. And so that's sort of put him in a position to capitalise. But you need someone to capitalise in that position, and we've got someone now, and Ah Chee too, to some extent.
We've been banging on all year how we need one of those second-string midfielders to actually stand up and make a name for themselves and really contribute to the team, and not this sort of endless ring around of Young and Moore and sort of prior Ah Chee and prior sort of Sammy Gray before their sort of their last few weeks. But I guess it really helps that Sammy Gray is now being played in his more natural position. I mean, we were sort of banging on last year and earlier this year that he's not a forward pocket. He shouldn't be played as a Brett Ebert style sort of forward where he's often the last man standing up there against 2 or 3 opponents. No one's going to be able to play well in those sort of conditions. But now he's playing as the midfielder, which he succeeds fantastically at in the SANFL, and he's now starting to put it together at AFL level, which is fantastic. He's getting the ball in tough conditions. He reads the tap so incredibly well. He's almost like a mini Robbie in that regard. You watch his sort of clearances over the last couple of weeks, and his ability to win those taps whilst he's moving and break free has been a real sort of fantastic attribute.
Do you think that, I don't know, I certainly feel this way. Do you think that as Port fans, I feel kind of foolish since over the past 3 years we're all sort of saying, Youngie, he's got something, he got a few clearances that game, or, we see some tiny little shreds of performance from these young players and fringe players coming in and thinking, that's good. And then the last 3 weeks, we've just been blown out of the water, and I just feels like this is the more the Port Adelaide standard we should be demanding. We've just sort of been clowning around a bit the last few years, just going, Andrew Moore can still make it. I don't know, like, we've had some great performances coming in from guys just finally finding their feet, and we've had for years now multiple players on that fringe that just have not performed anything like that level, not even close.
Can I just?
I mean, Youngie's not had any game at the level that Sammy Gray's played in the last 5 weeks. Not anywhere near it. Same as Andrew Moore. Andrew Moore's played some pretty good AFL footy, but not the standard of what Sammy Gray's shown in the last few weeks. And I've just got my fingers crossed that he's not like Mitch Banner. Mitch Banner, I think it was 2010, he had 4 or 5 weeks where he was pretty much best on ground every week, and he just sort of, his career flitted out to be nothing after that. So fingers crossed that Sammy Gray can continue to improve next year and really make a name for himself.
Mitch Banner wasn't. I was going to say Mitch Banner wasn't as good as what Sam Gray has done. And before, just quickly, Portia and Macca, you got with Aaron Young. Is he the unluckiest guy with the umpires? However, because he seems to get screwed over with holding the ball free kicks or getting. And I saw he had a blatant push in the back, and they still didn't call it. It's like, what the hell does this guy have to do to get on the right side of the umpires?
I don't know. I haven't really put that together, Rick. Sorry.
But yeah, that was my observation. He is a very unlucky guy when it comes to the bloody umpires. That was a shocking push in the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's no excuse. He's still, he's still way behind St. Graham.
That's it.
Yeah.
Our boy Brendon Ah Chee had another solid game. He didn't get the quantity of the ball that he's had the last couple of weeks, but I still thought he was really important. 18 touches, he kicked a goal. The fact he's hit the scoreboard the last few weeks has been great. And the thing I really liked about his game was all those little blocks and shepherds that he was putting on at the stoppages. I thought that was pretty crucial.
I'm a big fan of blocks and shepherds at the stoppages. I think they are the unsung heroes of the midfield. I know that West Coast, most recent West Coast Premiership side, they were big on that stuff. They love that sort of making sure that you have clear routes out of midfield from those blocks and shepherds. And if we bring that into our game, then we can actually really perform, because it makes it a more useful possession for the person that's got the ball. They have a bit less stress. They have a bit more time to line up a kick and pick an option. And it's just, we really want to see that every week from more than one player. We want to see it from every player. And that's really nice to see Brendon doing that.
Agreed. Someone has to do the hard work, and as long as it's recognised by the coaches through continued selection, like Ken would appreciate and do, it's a great thing. And Brendon, even though he didn't maybe have the stats that he had from the previous couple of weeks, he was still influential, and at least he was a player that was willing to get the boot on the ball and kick along in wet conditions, and didn't try to do too much and anything too fancy. And I like the fact that he's willing to have a fly and create a contest in a packed situation as well. So he can play that tall, small sort of situation.
Yeah, he could. I'd rather have him do other things, but it's nice that he can do it.
Yeah, well, if he's there, he might as well create a contest and bring the ball to ground.
Yeah.
I think his work on a forward flank has been a lot better than it was certainly at the start of his career, and it's almost like he's starting to learn how to play that position, which he will need to do if he is to make an AFL career. And we all know how great he is in the midfield, but he's always, at this stage, he's going to be a second-string midfielder, so he does need to learn that second position on the ground. And I think he's done a wonderful job the last couple of weeks of doing that. It's the next player that I want to talk about is Nathan Cracker, who was up against his old side. I wasn't sure how he would go against the Gold Coast. I was almost certain that they'd sort of put him under a bit of physical pressure and try and rough him up a little bit, but that didn't really happen. And I thought he was bloody fantastic across the half-back line. It was just cool as a cucumber. He's
been really great coming back, and I think that's just really a great sign of how well that defence is working as a unit, because he knew what everyone else is doing well enough not to get rattled no matter what, and that was very clear. And so we got a good performance from him. Hopefully, when every player goes up against their bugaboo side, whatever it is, they'll do really well, because the defence is such a unit.
He's one of those guys that's just really sort of flying under the radar if you weren't a Port diehard, but he just keeps getting the job done, and even his skills in the conditions were pretty silky. And you would think that with this pre-season coming up, that he's really going to cement his side in the starting 22, I would imagine.
Well, that's going to be interesting, because next year, we're playing four guys that you'd say were mostly halfbacks right now, and that's Pittard, O'Shea, Broadbent, and Cracker. Is that going to be our setup next year? Like, are we going to be like the four attacking halfback side? Is that what we're going to do, you think? Or is it just working for now in the teams we're playing?
Well,
it seems to be sort of Kenny Hinkley's thing that he loves the +1 down back and using that as a slingshot. So, I don't know, at this stage I don't really see that changing. I don't really see that changing at this point.
It's just who's going to be that half-back, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess we're talking about, Charlie Dixon and what you paid for him, and I hate to say it, but like if you're looking at an area on the ground where we do have a surplus of something, it's probably those attacking half-backs, in which case you might see one of them if we bring someone in, you might see one of them out potentially.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call, and I apologise to the poster who actually suggested this, but the Tom Cleary potential trade might be something that might come up because he's one of those surplus halfback flankers, maybe lacking a little bit of opportunity at Port, that might need that extra opportunity at Gold Coast, and you've got to offer, something of quality. So maybe Gold Coast might be allured by his endurance and still his young age and the potential upside from someone like him. Now, I'm not saying direct swap with Dixon, but yeah, I thought that was a very good suggestion by whoever that was. So I apologise.
I don't see Cleary leaving. He just signed a new contract a couple of months ago, so I don't really see him leaving.
Yeah.
I can see one of those sort of back flankers leaving. We've got Impey there. We've got Burn Jones as backup. We've got players there to to cover someone if they do end up getting traded or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point to see what happens. And of course, we've still got Jonas there as well, and Hartlett has played sort of down back a fair bit this year. We've got options, which is great.
I'd be more than happy to offer up Cam O'Shea.
Now. Let's not say things we might regret, Rick.
I'm sorry, I just had to say. What? Huh? Sorry, say, hello? You're breaking out.
Might be a big Kidard fan somewhere else. So Johnny Butcher.
So the Lobie Rider partnership, that was back in action again, and how did you think that worked on the weekend?
Well enough. It's like we discussed last week in that when they're both in the side, they both want to be the number one ruck, and we've seen that before with Port Adelaide, but they've just got to work it out, I guess, and work out how they can be different but both still useful so that they can have better matchups in ruck.
I don't like it. I don't think it works. And to be honest, I don't think it fits Ken Hinkley's running game plan, to be honest. And I think personally we look better with an extra runner and one ruckman with support. And, if that means one of them has to play in the seconds, if we're not going to trade them or they don't want to leave, which is fair enough. We just signed Ryder, so I doubt he's going anywhere, and we signed Lobie to 2019 or whatever it is. So, I just think we are much more suited to, the one ruck with the running game plan. So, their Ryder's influence was down, I thought, overall in the game, and I guess it's hard because it was a wet game as well. But at least Lobie's tackling pressure was up to a performance level that we would have expected from last season and the season before. But I just don't see it fitting.
I think there's a really awkward situation there in that we sort of talk about, okay, how do you play your rucks? And you say, okay, you're going to play Lobby mostly as ruck, and you're going to play Ryder as a ruck, and then up forward. But that almost feels like we're rewarding Lobby for the fact he can't play other positions very well, because it's pretty clear that Ryder loves being number one ruck, and he's happy to go forward, but I think it's a bit like Jackson Trengove, and he wants to play a position. And like I said, if the only reason we play him up forward is because we don't think Lobby is particularly good at any other position, then that's a real problem going forward for the duo and for the club to sort of resolve that conflict.
Well, what would you do, Portia?
It's really hard to say because, like you said, you talk about the running style of game plan, and then it comes down to is Lobby really suited to that? Like, I mean, he's a bit like going back a bit like a Matthew Clark ruckman, and we've got a Sean Wren. It's pretty easy to choose who you want to have playing, and you want your Sean Wren in there. Matty Clark stayed around on the list for a long time at the Crows, but ultimately, like, they could have done without him, I think, mostly. Don't know.
I don't know. Do we think it's going to be something that really comes to the fore next year and beyond with less interchanges coming in next year? If they do go for maybe a cap of 80 interchanges, is that really going to play into our hands playing two ruckmen? Are we going to see a real change in how the game is played in terms of having more stay-at-home forwards as opposed to the sort of basketball-esque sort of football that we see nowadays?
I think what we're going to see is that we'll have certainly two rucks. I think will come back. But as to how they play, I mean, the whole idea of slowing down the game is it increases the need for endurance players. So it might be that we see a bit of speed taken off the game. For a lot of players, it might mean that we get more pluggers coming back in the game and performing well. It's kind of hard to call. And what happens next year, that might not be the final solution as well. I mean, that might be that in 2 years' time, clubs work it out what they actually need to do. So it's something that's going to unfold over multiple years. So it's really hard to predict, unfortunately.
Again, even with the lower rotations, you still need Lobie to be influential around the ground. I just can't see us being able to carry two ruckmen where one of them can only really ruck at a contest, and that's about their influence. I just think it's a bit too limited, in my opinion. And if we're going to decrease the rotation, surely we want another midfielder on the bench to still continue that run.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing about it is that if we can get Lobby and Ryder playing, but they have different rucking styles, which to be fair they already kind of do, then the fact that there's a lower number of rotations makes it more feasible for us to get a winning matchup on the opposing ruck by putting them up against a style that they are not as good as at rucking against. And the fact that there's less rotations, I mean, there's a limit to how much other clubs are going to want to use rotations, changing their ruckman in and out. But I think the fact that Lobby isn't playing well elsewhere, that's just a real hole for us. Maybe he does get traded. I don't know. But who do we bring in, you know? Who do we bring in that we know can play two positions? I don't think that we have anyone on our list that we...
Charlie Dixon!
Hey!
Hey, no.
But would we... Yeah, I'm with you with the no, but I mean, I guess would would Hinkley be tempted to look at, let's full-time ruck, Ryder, and we've got Dixon, Trengove, Westhoff, three pinch hitters that can sort of do work around the ground.
I kind of wonder whether we look at the guys like Frampton, for example, or even, I suppose, even someone like Logan Austin. He's tall enough, I think. Is it the one I'm thinking of? Maybe not.
Yeah, Logan.
Yep.
Yeah. And bringing them in. So if you trade out Lobby, it doesn't mean you have to replace with a prime ruck. You can replace with a developing ruck / something else, and that can work. It means you're a little bit exposed, but you're already a bit exposed having a player that can only play ruck. So having a player that can play ruck in somewhere else, but not quite to the same standard, you can potentially cope with as a backup to Ryder. But then if Ryder gets injured, we're super exposed. So it's a risk. It's a big risk, but that could be what happens. I don't know. Or they could just keep backing Lobby in because he's a hard worker and they've got faith, and then we'll just have an awkward situation for next year and the year after, and then something will happen.
And I know you wanted to talk about Johnny Butcher, Portia.
Yeah, what do we think?
Well, he's now kicked, one goal in 3 games, so as a forward, he's probably not done his job.
Haters gonna hate. Such a
Well,
hater.
I thought for 3 quarters he was pretty ordinary, and then in the last quarter he absolutely shone and started to lead properly and took a couple of really good marks, and looked really nice as that sort of lead up forward.
All right, so why are so many people so supportive and in love with John?
Because we all want him to succeed so bad. We've followed his career since his draft year, where we were all pleading that he fell to us, and he did. And then he kicked those 6 goals against the Dogs, and he was the one shining light through that second half of 2011. And we've just always wanted him to succeed so bad, and I don't know. That
sounds like Truman.
Probably why. I guess it's almost like the Truman Show a little bit, but I don't know. In the end, his actual output's probably no better than Daniel Stewart, who no one liked. But Johnny Butcher, he's an attractive fella. He's wearing number 11. You got to love him. You got to back the Butch.
And I think that in accounting terms, it's kind of chasing a sunk cost, in that we've put so much hope and a good draft pick and a lot of requirements on him over such a long time that we're just so desperate for him to do well that we just try and see it when it's not there. It's really hard to take that out when you sort of got emotionally attached and thinking, oh yeah, Butcher's wearing number 11. How good is that? Scotty Hodges. and just getting all that build up and then detaching from that to make a clinical decision. I mean, we know that, that's why fans aren't coaches and why they don't run the list, because for the most part, fans don't like making those decisions or thinking about that sort of thing about their player that they like. It's a good bloke being cut because he's just not up to it. It's not fun. It's not fun for anyone to think about. So fans try not to. They try to think, yeah, Johnny Butcher, good on him. That's it.
I think he's showing something though. I think he's given a glimmer. If he was delisted, I could see why he's delisted, and if he's given a 1-year contract or a rookie contract, I could see why. And I guess with our shortage of tall forwards, there could be a reason if we've got enough players who are expendable to cover the transfer of players in the off season. But it will be interesting to see what his fate is this trade period.
Well, I mean, what we were talking about earlier, or I was talking about earlier in this podcast, was that we're talking about how the bar for young players coming into the side it was actually really low when we were talking about Andrew Moore and Aaron Young and everyone. Ben Newton, even there was still some fans after he debuted. And I feel that we're looking at Butcher now, and I think it's just exactly that same thing. And we are setting a really low bar for what we expect from a rookie key forward coming into the side, because he would be one of the worst in the league this year, I would imagine. For a young key forward coming into a side, he'd be one of the worst for sure. Yeah, I think he's cooked.
Haters gonna hate. Stick up for the Butch. Come on, guys. He's a Port Adelaide player. I'm going to call you Al soon, the pair of yous. Bloody haters.
As I said, I love the Butch, but his output doesn't match the people's love for him. But that's okay. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he will get another year next year. It's hard to say. I mean, he's almost ready to go key forward outside of the guys that play every week. So I don't know. It's a really tough call. If he gets delisted, I probably won't bat an eyelid. If he stays on the list, good on him, and I hope he succeeds. But I don't know. It's a real 50-50 call on whether he stays or not.
Do you think we keep a spot on the list for he's a good bloke? Because we had Cameron Hitchcock go, and this year we'll probably have Paul Stewart go. Do you think that opens up a spot for he's a good bloke, keep him around another year? Or, I don't know, is that something we actually do, keep on character? Because it feels like we do sometimes. We keep players that are just good guys a bit longer than we should. I don't know. What do you reckon?
Yeah, he's also the player with the most experience of any of our young key forwards, and the only way that I guess the younger guys are going to get any sort of experience is just to bite the bullet and play them. But I mean, if we're going for a premiership or whatever, and we've got maybe Charlie Dixon and Justin Westhoff, then Butcher's the next in line. Are we going to win a premiership with either Schultz/Dixon, Westhoff, and then Shaw and Harvey, who haven't played a game, and Shaw's perpetually injured?
Well, I've got to say, Harvey, a lot of people have been calling him to play, but I just don't see what he's done in the SANFL to actually deserve a call-up. I mean, surely we're selecting players that have to do something to warrant a call-up, and he's one of those players where I think he's still plying his trade and learning, but he hasn't really taken the SANFL by storm to actually show us anything. And the same with Mason Shaw. Neither's he. I mean, obviously the coaches lack a bit of confidence in both of those players to come through and push for a spot on the list in the 2015 season.
But the SANFL is such a different beast to the AFL now that I'm really not sure that it's entirely relevant what the form is there. Like, if you're a key forward in the SANFL, you're playing a hugely different game to what you're playing at AFL level, and you're still dependent on what's coming up the field towards you. Like, that's a huge thing. You can do it with defenders and say, oh, you've got to be playing well, and even then it's a bit iffy. But with forwards, it's just so iffy as what's going on, And we talk about like draftees playing against men in the SANFL, and then they come through, and it's still just a complete chook lotto as to what sort of player they actually are, because it is so very different to what's expected. So I don't know that really comes down to. I think it comes down to his physical development and his work rate. I don't know what his work rate and his physical development is, but I hope it is good or better than it was. I don't know.
Yeah, he's only kicked 20 goals for the year, I think. So certainly his output in terms of goals probably isn't as impressive as some people have made out, but he did have a really good period of about 5 or 6 weeks where he seemed to be kicking 2 or 3 goals every week. His last 3 or 4 games have probably been a little bit disappointing, but I don't know. I still hold out hope for Harvey, and I think with another pre-season to get some more running in his legs, maybe trim his body down a little bit, he could certainly play a part next year.
Yeah, hopefully.
I still hold out.
We need it. We need one of those guys to stand up and make a name for themselves, because otherwise we're pretty stuffed, to be honest.
We don't even need them to be fantastic. We just need them to be, good enough to get 1 or 2 goals a game. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they can do that, we're happy.
If Harvey comes in next year, and say Harvey comes in next year and plays every game, I mean, I would take a 20 to 25 goal a season from Harvey next year.
Yep, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I still hold out hope for Logan Austin out of the 3 of those players, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
I think he looks the most natural forward, and I also like the idea of swinging him up forward and giving him a shot there instead of pigeonholing him as just a key back. I think he has a bit of potential.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we keep him as a key back, then who's he replacing in that side? Like, we've got Carlisle, who's going to be around for another 4 or 5 years. Tringove a lot longer. Homshe longer again. Oh, I reckon. Yeah. I reckon so.
Oh.
Yeah.
So how old's Bobby?
Yeah. I don't know.
28?
Oh, less than that, surely. But fullbacks go on past 30. That's not uncommon.
He's 28 at the moment. He'll be almost 29 when the season starts.
Yeah. Well,
or maybe 2 or 3.
Well, I reckon he's still got 3, which I mean is going to limit Logan Austin's potential when you got Jack Homsch, which is now sort of cemented his spot in the side for the next 10 years. So unless there's an injury, I'm assuming Cleary we're trading out for Dixon. So and I guess you got Jonas there as the 4th key back as well. And I've got to say, what a remarkable turnaround. Funny how someone gets dropped in shocking form and gets and then comes back and he's like in 2014 form again. It's just amazing. But yeah, I think there's more upside to giving Logan Austin an opportunity up forward to see what he can show compared to just pigeonholing him back as a defender.
Well, I mean, it's what we did to Stephen Gillum, if you recall. Like, Stephen Gillum played defence all the time, and then he just didn't get any opportunities at senior level because we had a rock-solid defence at that time. Goes over to Hawthorn, he's multiple premiership player, He could end up being really good, but if we don't put him in a position where he gets an opportunity to have a game, then we're just sort of wasting time to some extent.
He's also a very raw young key defender. I mean, he hasn't played a lot of footy, and this is his first year playing senior footy, so I think they'll give him every chance to develop, and maybe they don't expect him to play games for another sort of 2 seasons, but I mean, Trengo's he misses 5+ games year in, year out. I mean, Cleary, does he hang around? Maybe we do trade someone like Jonas. You never know. Cleary takes his spot, and then suddenly there's a spot there for Austin as the next in line. I mean,
big call.
These things might happen.
Yeah, huge call.
Trade Jonas.
No.
That's going to get the natives restless.
Cheer, cheer the black and the white. Honour the magpies day and by night. Live that glory.
But I think we should move on and have a quick chat about the SANFL. Port won their 6th match on the trot with another 37-point win over West Adelaide to secure 2nd spot on the ladder. Stevie Summerton, the captain, kicked 5. Mason Shaw wonderfully kicked 3 goals, and Luke Reynolds kicked 2. So I think we play West Adelaide again this week in the qualifying final, which will be on Sunday at Adelaide Oval at 3:10.
Maggies, yeah!
Yeah.
Yeah! Woohoo!
Gotta love finals time. Even though you're taking the piss, you gotta love finals time.
Hey, I was being serious, mate. Come on. I was actually interested in scrolling through the names of who's eligible and who's not today. So the Arch.
I guess the main exclusion is Ah Chee. Yeah, he's the main one.
The Arch is not eligible, so which is a good thing because that means that he's stepping up to the plate with his performances at AFL level. So that's a good thing. But I guess. Are we good enough this year compared to last year?
I think it's a tough question. I'm not sure. I think our team was probably better last year, but You never know. I think we had certainly more AFL players capable of playing last year. I think there's a lot more of the SANFL guys playing at the moment, and it certainly seems to be a younger team this year. Whether they perform when it comes to finals, I'm not too sure. I certainly hope so. And look, they're in cracking form. They're in winning form at the moment, so you never know. I mean, guys like Mitchell are performing excellently. Moore, Stewart, Summerton, Cahoon. I mean, these are our senior players. Logan as well. I mean, they're all playing fantastic footy. And if they do get 2 or 3 of those AFL guys coming back in, like Sammy Gray and Johnny Butcher, then maybe they can win a premiership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez,
Don't
Portia,
all sound so excited.
At least one of us could feign some excitement. Yeah. Woohoo! That's why we got the Maggie show on Wednesday nights.
It's true.
Well, we're all pretty excited about one club, and I don't know, surely this is part of it. I mean, surely these younger players experiencing some final success is only a good thing for their AFL futures.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's bonus games realistically. Like, it's opportunity to show that they've got something going into next season that you don't get if you're in the top side. Eventually, if they keep winning finals and keep playing well, then that can look very good for them, and they might find their niche. If they play the grand final, I mean, that's God. I don't know. Do you think the SNFL grand final is the same standard as an AFL game? I suppose it would be a lot of AFL games. Like, I mean, any Melbourne Demons game would be a similar standard.
I think in terms of pressure, it's certainly up there. I mean, this is going to be excellent experience for guys like Cahoon, guys like Burn Jones, all those guys that we've talked about in the last sort of half an hour. Guys like Mitch Harvey, Tommy Cleary, Sammy Gray. I mean, the experience they're going to get playing SANFL finals footy and hopefully playing in another grand final can only do them the world of good.
Well, and especially because it actually, what it shows us about them that we won't see at AFL level is how they perform when they're the number one. Which is very important to know, because it can tell you something about a player. Like we had, let's go back in the day and we had Mark Tyler playing second fiddle to Scotty Hodges. It's nice to see what your backup players can do as number one in case you need them to, because we know that like next year, let's say we don't get Dixon, we keep Schultz and Schultz gets injured. Any one of those key forwards, for example, they could be playing a serious amount of game time potentially. So it's good to give them an opportunity to show that they can stand up as the key focal point as well. So yeah, it's certainly good to see if we can put in a good performance and keep playing and get some good pressure football. It'd be good.
Kay Mitchell was the star once again. He had 36 touches, 7 tackles, 11 clearances, 7 inside 50s. What happens with Kane Mitchell next year? I mean, does he stay on the AFL list? Do you think he's a very popular figure at the club. It's debatable whether he's good enough. He's probably struggled at AFL level his last few games there. Does he get another token year just to see if he can do what someone like Sammy Gray has done this year?
No, I
think this is going to be interesting because what we'd ideally be saying is, get rid of him, and hopefully we've had our eyes on some guys in seconds leagues or guys further down the list at other clubs. But of course, we had Jason Cripps have an interrupted season himself, which is not great. Certainly from his personal health, but also potentially in terms of the opportunity to scout other teams and scout the VFL and scout anywhere else and talk to players that are on the fringe to bring in to replace Kane Mitchell potentially. So I wonder if we're affected on that and whether that'll impact on whether we hang on to a couple of these fringe players, because we've got to replace them with players that they've either got to have a huge upside or they've got to have real playability in the short term. So we know that Mitchell can do okay and he can play a role. That role might be actually the disappearance of the sub rule to some extent, but if we don't have anyone else lined up that we sort of think is a good thing, like from the VFL or from another team's list or the Waffle or wherever, then he could hang around another year. I think he's in the lap of the gods, and I don't think his performance in the next couple of weeks is going to make a difference.
I guess
It's important to note that the draft this year is probably a pretty shallow one. Certainly from what I've heard from recruiters and the people that follow the draft, it's you're capable of getting a good player in the first sort of 2025, then it drops off pretty significantly from there. I mean, Vic Metro really struggled this year. WA's almost no one's going to get drafted from there. So it's going to be a bit of a crapshoot in terms of the draft. So maybe we make the decision to that it is better the devil you know this year and keep some of those guys around.
Just on WA, we know that this is the difference between WA and SA, is that WA teams look out for their AFL teams, and I'm not at all surprised that, gee, gosh, isn't it amazing that WA had a bad year in the year that Fremantle and West Coast don't have good draft picks? I don't know. I think there could be some sleepers there. They've done it before. They've done it multiple times before, where they've just, oh gosh, we've had a shit year at the same year. There's a really great WA players at the top, and I don't know how it works. I don't know what the synergy is, but I think there's probably some players there. But I'm talking really more about recycled players. There's always a good depth of those. They don't change too much from year to year. It's really just a matter of looking around there and getting a good knowledge of that market, because I think that's, if we're talking about delisting players like Mitchell, that's the sort of player we're looking at replacing him with, seeing if we can get basically an upgrade for a role that we need more than we need Mitchell.
I think when you talk about Mitchell, if you look at the list of injuries or players that would be in our starting 22 that aren't, you got Jared Pollock and Ollie Wines. So that's going to put pressure on our depth there, where depth players getting a game. So that means obviously Aaron Young's going to be dropped back to the reserves. Maybe I'm just going on based on performance. Karl Amon might go back as well, or potentially Ah Chee. So do we need Mitchell that's in that 28 spot for depth in case of injury, or do you flick him off and try and recruit a young midfielder that we might get some upside for in the future? I guess if we're looking at a premiership shot next year, well, maybe a midfielder in the mid 40s or 60s might not be playing next year. So maybe keeping him for that fill-in role to pinch hit if there is a couple of injuries might be worthwhile. And then if 2016 isn't the year, well, then maybe we look at it from there.
Yeah, it's really...
I can really see this being a year where we have our first draft pick, which may not even be in the first round if we do try and get someone like Dixon. And then our next two draft picks that we have to have upgrade Sammy Gray, upgrade Nathan Cracker, and that's all we do.
Yeah, I agree. That's quite probable.
Mm. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much going on there. I know you've probably discussed this, but what do you guys think about the potential, and we're going away from the Magpies, of handing over our first round pick for Charlie Dixon?
It's never great, but what would we use it on? Like, okay, ignoring the field of players that are available and what depth it is or anything else. Like, if you can bring a young 18-year-old into our current first 22 potentially, who do you draft? And I don't think there's anyone we can draft with a first-round pick this year that will make a huge difference next year. They might be a good player, but we're not going to draft a key position forward with our reasonably, our pretty average first-round pick and have them come out and play 20 games next year. Like, that's not really likely to happen.
Well, the only random one would be that Burton from South Australia, but he's coming back from a broken leg, and potentially we don't know what he's going to be like, and he might not even get a game next year.
Yeah,
plus
exactly.
he's only 190 centimetres, so I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. I think if we keep our first pick, call me naive or whatever, but I reckon we'll be going Karl Amon, 100%.
Mm.
Yeah, you'd probably think that would be the... Oh, God, I don't know, because that just seems so choco. I mean...
It does seem choco, but and it might be unfair maybe comparing him to that, because he's definitely first-round quality.
Yeah.
He may slide further than that because he didn't have a very good championships, but he has played some pretty good senior football recently. He is the brother of, and he is that sort of player that maybe we lack, and in a couple of years he'll be, again, similar to Karl Amon, he's got that sort of Chad Wingard skill set where he can take a hanger super quick, great around goals, can hopefully go into the midfield, and that's probably the sort of player that we would want to pick with our first round pick if we keep it.
Yeah, I've got to agree, because thought just occurred to me, which is that we've talked about how we're one of the most attacking sides in the last couple of years, but that our actual half forwards have been sort of middling. I mean, we've got Chad Wingard, who is just in a zone of his own, but then like our ones below that, they're pretty good. they're okay, and we could certainly recruit more. I don't have anything against that. And like we were just sort of using as a qualification, like if you draft for a half forward with your first round pick, there is a chance they'll play games in that first year. And if, as Rick said, we're aiming for a premiership next year, that could be exactly the sort of pick we make. So yeah, I think that certainly could be a goer. But I think that if we traded that pick away, I don't think it would hurt us too much. I mean, it might further down the line because we've got a key forward problem, but I don't think it'll hurt us in the next couple of years.
Well, we'd be trading for Dixon, who would be at least a 6-year player.
Yeah, so that'd be great.
He's 24 at the moment, so yeah, certainly that's the case. I mean, there are some decent looking sort of key forwards, I think, that might be around at our pick in the first round, or it might be a bit of a reach, maybe chasing someone like a Macca or someone like that. I'm not too sure, but I think, I mean, this is the sort of trade that you just got to make if you want to win a premiership. Yeah. I mean, these are the trades that you do. I mean, to trade a first round pick for a ready to go key forward that can take a strong grab, that can kick, he's averaging 3 goals a game. I mean, I think you've got to make that call, and you've just got to do it.
I hate to say it, but I guess I would look at it this way: if I'm going to compare myself to the recent times best, what would Hawthorn do in this situation? And because they've been the benchmark now, and they would do this deal in a heartbeat. They'd give it away to get the player that they need to fill that gap, and that's what's given them their prolonged success. So yeah, I mean, if we can get Dixon without using it, even better. But if we have to forego it to get Dixon, I think he fills a real hole on our side. So you would be mad not to.
Yeah, it's a bit of a no-brainer, really. I think like what we'd lose was not compared to what we could potentially gain.
Yeah.
That's it. All right. Well, that's probably it for this podcast. So thanks, guys, for coming back on.
Thank you.
No dramas. Good to see I was able to derail multiple conversations once again. So my job is done.
Yeah, I've got to get better.
We've had our squeaky chair fixed for the last couple of weeks, so it's been great.
Haters gonna hate Macca. Crazy big owl. He must be at home. He must be on the Gold Coast with the kids because he's been very, very quiet tonight. I was waiting for a bit of Twitter squeal from Al, and nothing's come through.
That's it.
Oh.
All right, peeps. Until next time, come Port Adelaide.
Come the power.
Come Maggies.
Wines, Gray, fancy, well done. Still Gray, handball's good. Westhoff could kick a goal from here. He does. What a start.